Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the 24 books that I want to get to in 2024. I always see people doing these lists and I think they look really fun, so I think it'll be really good if I do one this year, and then at the beginning of 2025 I can look back and see how many I've read. Okay, so the first category I'm going to go through is fantasy tomes I really need to get to if I want to consider myself a fantasy reader. In my opinion, just like classic fantasies that I feel like I really need to get to, or ones I hear really, really good things about and I think I might like. So first one is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I feel like if you know anything about fantasy, you know who Brandon Sanderson is and how well loved he is. So I started reading a little bit of it, but I just need to get back into it. I haven't finished it yet. I'm going to get through it. It's very chunky, so that's probably why I haven't finished reading it. But this year, I've lowered my reading goal so that I have time to read longer books and more books. So in this, we kind of follow, I think the premise is, it says like, what if the prophesized hero had failed to defeat the Dark Lord? So it's kind of like, what if the bad guy won? And then the repercussions of that. Follow different people who can use different metals to get magic. So there's like different magics have different abilities. You're Mistborn if you can do all of them, but most people can only use one magic and one metal. Brandon Sanderson, I think this is the kind of one that I think if you want to get into fantasy as well, it's the one that everyone kind of recommends as like, Brandon Sanderson's easiest to get into. At least that's what I think. And I see him doing all his secret projects and releasing them, and everyone loves them, so I want to get to those as well. But I feel like I need to finish this one first just to get like, an intro. The next one, I don't actually know too much about the plot, and I'm not sure I actually want to know too much about it. It is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is another one that everyone seems to love, and it's really like universally loved by fantasy readers. So I figured I'd pick it up. I found it on Kindle for 99p in, I think it was like over Christmas, it was on sale. So I was like, why not? It's massive, and actually it's more convenient, I think, to read massive books on your Kindle. That's another one that I want to get to. It's massive, so it will take some time, but I've heard so many amazing things about it. And also on my Kindle I've got Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, which is kind of like cozy fantasy about an orc who's kind of retired from her mercenary life, and she wants to kind of start up a little coffee shop, and she introduces all these kind of different characters to coffee and just cute things like that. It sounds really good. It sounds like the book equivalent of a cozy game. Sounds amazing to me. And then the other one I have, I don't own, but it's Kaikai. So it's kind of a Hindu mythology retelling, which I think is really interesting because I feel like we only really see like the Greek ones that are really popular, but this one seems really interesting and I hear really good things about it, and I've been meaning to get to it for so long because I've loved the Greek mythology retellings. So I figured, why not branch out into some other different cultural mythologies. And then my next category I'm calling cutesy, adorable books that sound like they're something I would love. This is one of those genres that I feel like I figured out that I really like, or hopefully I really like. I've liked like a couple of books with similar vibes, so I think I'll really like these ones. The first one is Emily Wild's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. So this is essentially about Emily Wild, this kind of academic who goes and wants to do studying fairies, and it's all kind of like her entries of studying these kind of, I think she goes to like a Scandinavian kind of inspired land and wants to look at the kind of rare fairies there, and she goes to this town and no one really likes her. She's a little bit weird, she's a little bit out there, and then she kind of meets up with her rival there, who's this guy who's really charming and everyone loves him. It sounds like a really cutesy and wholesome, I think wholesome is the word I'm looking for, wholesome and cutesy, wholesome stories. But yeah, it sounds so wholesome and cute, and it sounds like something that I would just love. And I've heard lots of people recommend it if you like other similar things like Divine Rivals or another book by Carissa Broadbent, The War of Lost Hearts. I think that's what the trilogy is called. If you like the kind of relationships and dynamics in that, then you'll like these ones, so that's why this is on there. And similarly, Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, which is kind of a like Regency fairy tale kind of story where this girl is cursed by fairies and she loses half of her soul. So she's kind of like a bit like she lacks in empathy and she's kind of a bit different. Maybe that's also the theme between these books. Its main characters are a little bit different and a little bit strange, and it's kind of just, I don't know exactly what the plot is, but you know, I heard that and I was like, I'm sold. That sounds like something I'd love. Other people have said it's quite wholesome, so that's why it's on here. And actually that concludes the wholesome stories. If you have any recommendations for wholesome stories like those ones, please leave them in the comments, because I need more wholesome stories in my life. Okay, and the next category is going to be new releases. So new releases that are coming out this year that I really want to get to, but these are the ones I'm most excited about. So we have Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austen, because I read Everybody in This Room Will One Day Be Dead, and I put it in my top favourite books of 2023. I really like her writing, and I'd love to, and it sounds like I like really different main characters, so I feel like the main character and the plot line of this book sounds kind of similar to that. So I'm interested to read her next one, which is coming out, and I didn't realize this until like a couple of weeks ago, so I'm really excited about that. And then the other new release is Funny Story by Emily Henry. Me and Emily Henry, we've had a bit of a, we've got a bit of a tumultuous relationship. So I read Book Lovers in like 2022, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's amazing romance. This is a romance I love. And then Happy Place came out, and I was like, I think I was already a bit like, after I read Book Lovers, I was a bit tentatively like, I'm a bit scared to read something else by Emily Henry in case I don't love it as much. And then I read Happy Place, and that's what happened. So, but I'm willing to give her another chance. Funny Story essentially follows Daphne, who is, I think the situation is her boyfriend essentially breaks up with her because he's in love with his childhood best friend, and then distraught, she's like, she needs to like move out, find somewhere to live, and she ends up kind of living with the best friend's ex. So it's kind of like a swap essentially. Then obviously, maybe they find out they're for each other, that kind of thing. It's Emily Henry, so I'll try it. I'm hoping she can redeem herself. And then the other new release that I'm looking forward to is No One Can Know by Kate Alice Marshall. Got her name right this time, which I love Kate Alice Marshall's writing. She wrote Rules for Vanishing, which was also on my top books of 2023. I think is an adult kind of thriller. And I know Kate Alice Marshall always writes things that are very creepy and suspenseful, and it's so easy to read, and there's always kind of like little secrets that are kind of being uncovered in them. So like the synopsis essentially says it's a novel about 3 sisters, 2 murders, and too many secrets to count. Like, I mean, that sums up her kind of books anyway. So those were all the new releases. Now we're going to get on to the next category, which is literary fiction / general fiction that's been on my shelf for too long and I really need to get to. As we were saying, I need to give Emily Henry another chance. I also want to give Beach Read a read. This is one that I think a lot of people really love as well. It's the one that I have most hopes for loving. Emily Henry has 2 redemption chances this year, and these are them. Essentially 2 writers, they write different genres. One writes romance and one writes like literary fiction, and they're both different writers. And then I think they're both like broke, and they're like, you know what, let's try and write the other one's genre. So they swap genres to write, and obviously, fall in love, change each other's lives, something along those lines. But it sounds really good. It sounds like, literary, bookish, romance. I think it sounds good. We also have The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki, which it's just been on my shelf for far too long. I loved her other book, A Tale for the Time Being, which was amazing. This one essentially follows a child who can hear the thoughts of objects. So things in his house, he can hear their voices, which is an interesting premise. Ruth Ozeki always writes about things that are slightly strange, but in such a good way, and I really need to get to it. And the thing that's putting me off is that it is quite big. It's like 500 pages, but this year is going to be the year of reading big books, so this one's on here. Also, another big book is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which is like the Dark Academia book, the original Dark Academia. Everyone loves it. I really need to read it. I feel like it's probably better to read this before I read other Dark Academias, just because it just makes sense. You read the original first before you read the kind of like inspirations. And again, this is like 600 pages. 600 pages. I mean, it doesn't look it, but it is. Year of big books. Okay, and then the next one is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This one I haven't had for that long, actually. I bought it on Kindle over Christmas because it was 99p, but it essentially follows. I've had this on my list of like TBR for ages. Everyone says that she's such a like unique and interesting character, really like sticks with you. Like the characterization is really good, and I feel like but I love books like that. So that's why it's on here. And she kind of has these little things that have happened in her past that you kind of see glimpses of, but you don't really see everything yet. So it's like uncovering what's happened in her past. And then next up is just a graphic novel that I have, not a graphic novel actually, it's a manga that I have that I have two of. I have 2 volumes of these like Junji Ito short story collections. So this is Frankenstein. I also have Love Sickness, but I figured I'd read this one first. I really like Junji Ito's art style, and I think this will be good to break up reading, especially if I'm reading really massive books and I just want something that's a bit breaks up like reading. And I like short story kind of collections because you can just kind of dip in and out of them a bit, and if you want something different to read and you're not in the mood to read whatever you're reading, which is good when you're a mood reader. This is just like short horror stories. I think it's like a Frankenstein retelling, which is why it's called Frankenstein, and then a bunch of other ones. Junji Ito is also like classic horror, considered one of the best horror manga writers. Okay, and the next category is classics that I really want to get to and I need to make a conscious effort to make time for. I really enjoyed classics. I really enjoyed classics when I was at school, and I really enjoy them now. I just don't really make time for them as much anymore. These are the ones. There's 4 that I want to read. Wide Sargasso Sea. I've got these really nice penguin cloth bound editions. A prequel to Jane Eyre, obviously not written by Charlotte Bronte. It's written by Jean Rhys. I think it's written in the 1960s, so it's like more of a modernish classic. Kind of follows characters in Jane Eyre that don't get a story. I don't want to say who it follows because I feel like it spoils Jane Eyre, even if it's not a recent book, is it, Jane Eyre? But I still don't want to spoil, if people don't know the story, I don't want to spoil it. And I've always wanted to read it because I love Jane Eyre, and anything to do with Jane Eyre, I'm like, I'll read that. Next up is actually a reread of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, again in the cloth bound edition. I think I started listening to Kate Bush's song Wuthering Heights and I was like, oh, I really need to read Wuthering Heights again. And then I got the set of like the Bronte sisters cloth bound editions and I was like, oh, perfect chance to read it. I really want to make more time to read classics, even if they are a bit like heavier and take a bit longer to read. I do really enjoy them and I want to get back into them. Other classic that I want to read is Far from the Maddening Crowd by Thomas Hardy. I also have a set of Thomas Hardy in the cloth bound classics. I've read Tess of the D'Urbervilles, which I really love. Thomas Hardy's a man, isn't he? It's not, yeah. Thinking of the other one. I read Tess of the D'Urbervilles quite a while ago, but I think he does quite a good job for the time period about writing women and lots of the issues that happen to women and like injustices that happens towards women and like double standards and things like that. I think I found that really interesting, Tess of the D'Urbervilles. So I really want to read this one as well. Also, look how nice the cover is. It's got little bees on. And then the other one, I don't know where my copy of it is. It's around somewhere, but it's Emma by Jane Austen. So me and Jane Austen haven't always gotten. I think I bought the book I think when I was in uni, which was many moons ago, and I read it for, I think I was meant to read it for like a seminar or something, but I don't think I read it all the way through. I can see in my edition, I can see that I've got tabs like up to like a quarter of the way through, so I clearly didn't get that far in. But I feel like I hear good things about Emma. I see everyone loving Jane Austen's books, and maybe I just didn't get it the first time. Maybe I was really young and a bit dumb and just, you know, it went over my head. So I feel like now I'm a bit older, maybe I'll appreciate it a bit more and the kind of like witty cleverness of her writing. But I think Emma essentially follows kind of a woman called Emma, obviously. And she's kind of like this matchmaker. She likes matchmaking her friends up. I think she's meant to be like this kind of like almost like spoiled kind of this like unlikable character. And then it kind of just follows her doing her matchmaking and the lessons she learns from that. Shenanigans essentially she gets up to and the lessons she learns from everything that she does. To be honest, I just want to be a Jane Austen girly. All the things people say about her, I'm like, maybe I missed it in the first time I read her books, but I want to get on board with all the Jane Austen vibes. Final category is non-fiction / basically self-help books that I've had and have bought and have been accumulating. I just want to get through them. So the ones that I have on my shelf, I'm not going to go too much into detail because they're all kind of like, the synopsis essentially, they're all kind of self-help about changing your mindset on certain things. So we have Indistractable about attention and being able to control your attention in the one thing, which is about kind of how focusing your energy on one thing you'll get really good results for. I have Atomic Habits on my Kindle, which is, I feel like it's the like one that's really hyped up. It's about like how being like 1% better gradually adds up over time. and kind of like the science and study behind that. And then we have The Power of Now, which is, so it's kind of like about spiritual enlightenment, about like the self and ego, and like kind of like, I don't really know how to describe it, but I wanted to read more about it. And then I also have The Mountain Is You, which is kind of about like self-sabotage and kind of getting out of your own way. And then we also have Design Your Life, which is one I got really on a whim on the Kindle e-store, again over Christmas for 99p. I think it's kind of similar to Atomic Habits and how changing your life in small ways and planning things out can change your life. I also really liked the cover. It looks very graphic designery, so I was like, I'll get that. So yeah, Atomic Habit, Indistractable, The One Thing, The Power of Now, Mountain Is You, and Design Your Life. All the kind of non-fiction self-helpy books that I want to get through. So those are all the books that I'm hoping to get to in 2024. Let me know if you've read any of these. What's the number one book that you want to read this year? That's what I want to know, because I'm always interested in what other people are reading. Thank you for watching. Let me know what the number one book you want to read in 2024 is. And have a nice day. If you like this video, please give it a like. And if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.